Today, for me, is a day of thanks and acknowledgement. We kind of, as a shorthand, call this a graduation ceremony. It is in no sense a graduation ceremony, but we've structured it somewhat that way, so that's why it's easy to call it that. But it is a day of acknowledgement. So today we are acknowledging the participants in the Headmaster College. And before we do, I want to acknowledge another group that is essential to the Headmaster College, and I don't talk about it all that much, but I am really struck. This is a phenomenon that you'd be surprised how often I experience. Headmaster will come to me and say, Helen, I have somebody who is priceless. I would die if I lost them. They are my right hand. And I recognize that they are so valuable that I am eventually going to have to give them up. And so their name is blank. And then I go running off to blank. And I am so deeply touched when a headmaster does that. And you know who you are. Almost all of you, everybody whom I call up today, in some sense, they have been supported and shepherded by their headmaster. So not only do I want to acknowledge the selflessness behind the act of stepping forward as a participant in the Headmaster College and saying, I'm going to spend an extra 200 plus hours beyond my regular job in order to prepare to be ready to serve the network in some larger way. Right? So we have that sacrifice being made, and that is one of the things I'm acknowledging today. But on top of that, we have headmasters who say, yes, you can leave early on Tuesdays. Yes, I'll take some extra time out of my busy day and show you how Taleo works. And all of those many ways in which the Headmaster College represents this larger action of thinking of our larger undertaking, an act of selflessness on many people's parts, for which I am deeply and lastingly grateful. And at this point, before I bring them up, I want to introduce Dan Scoggin, Dr. Dan Scoggin, who was the one who came to me and said, I've got this idea. I think we should do this. And so in terms of gratitude, we can all thank him for that idea. Thank you, Dan.
Well, thanks, Helen. And she asked me to say a few words at this headmaster graduation. And I was like, do they get well, you didn't call it a graduation, but do they get a certificate, a headmaster license, some type of, like a gun permit, kind of something? They have to put it on the wall. They put it on the wall. And she mentioned to me that the Headmaster College involves 200 hours of study and coaching and learning. That's a significant job after your job during the day of working at your school. So thank you so very much to all the Headmaster College attendees for that work. And I'd like to say a few words about headmastering just for a few minutes. And I can say for my own 6 years as a headmaster that it was both the best job I ever had and the worst job that I ever had. I can see headmasters already nodding. And you know, it's like the opening of A Tale of Two Cities. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. And it's a little bit like parenting because when I had Emma, who's now a senior at John Poppleton School at Chandler Prep, she's defending her thesis next Friday, my brother comes up and whispers in my ear, your life's kind of over. We were at the hospital, and he said, you know, this is the best thing that's ever happened to you and the worst thing that's ever happened to you. And as a parent, you know it. You know, being a parent is lovely, but 2 or 3 months into sleepless nights and all the challenges, it's so hard, right? And I think headmastering is like that. Headmastering and parenting are not dissimilar. So I'd like to reflect for a moment on what it means to be a great-hearted headmaster. And you recall why we chose the name Great Hearts for the organization. We didn't choose the name Great Minds, Great Books, Great Careers. We chose the name Great Hearts specifically around that word heart, which has a unique double meaning in English. Heart, the capacity to love, great-heartedness, affection, a longing for things beyond ourselves, both our fellow human beings and the truth, goodness, and beauty, but also courage, Someone who has heart has staying power, resolve. And I think it's the combination, the dualism of those two parts of heart that define a headmaster, courage and love. The courage to love with discipline and thoughtfulness. And I'd argue that the anchor of your love for your teacher and students is this courage. And while you must rely on your brilliance and wit to run these schools, these are intellectually challenging schools to run, it's the deployment of your courageous heart where the real work of headmastering takes place. And as you all know, we think of this organization in terms of concentric circles. So at the center of Great Hearts is the academy, and at the center of the academy is the faculty, that faculty garden, that faculty quality. And at the center of that community is the headmaster. You guys shape these human beings, you tend the faculty garden. So in that sense, at the center of Great Hearts is your heart. The 23 hearts of the Arizona headmasters and the new 15 headmasters to be, that confederation of goodness, that confederation of hearts is really what Great Hearts' success depends upon. So your teachers and families are looking to you to answer the big questions. They're asking, is the journey through the school worth it? Especially the prep school headmasters, you get that question all the time. Is all this work worth it? Are there shortcuts? Where are we headed? Where are we going? And this is the faculty too, throughout the year and from year to year. What does it all mean? Simply put, what and whom should I care about? And these existential questions, yeah, they're intellectual questions too, but they're ultimately questions of the heart, of affection, of deployment of your dignity. So holding this sometimes fragile structure together, and our schools are fragile, they're as fragile as the human beings that struggle through them and succeed in them. Holding this structure together, and what unites this room of current and future headmasters is the heroic calling to place our hearts in the breach. As one of our founding board members, Dr. John X. Evans, many of you know Dr. Evans, he's in his later years, but really the intellectual patriarch behind Great Hearts. As Dr. Evans put it, the hero is, quote, that great-souled person to whom people entrust their security and hope. The hero is that great-souled person to whom people entrust their security and hope. Their hope. That's the headmaster. And I know from my own headmastering days that the work can be lonely and takes its toll from time to time. This may be familiar to you. Have you ever been driving home from a hard day at the academy as an assistant headmaster or dean or our headmasters here and had that sinking feeling? And even you turn on country music like Eric Twist does, and it doesn't even help you. You turn on your favorite station. Andrew Elson turns on a little harder variety of the musical opportunities, and it doesn't help. And you get that sinking feeling, the school's falling apart. It's collapsing. I'm going to come back tomorrow. I don't even know if the school's going to be there. That teacher, that student, that family, it's just too much. But I know from that feeling that our headmaster, you guys are so resilient. The next day, the brightness, freshness, and coolness of an Arizona morning, some coffee, a good dose of prayer, all of those ingredients, and your resilience comes back. We know who our students are becoming. They're growing goodness and talents, our connection with them, and what the end of the year and program will bring. And this is an important point that I really want to make. The school stands on the faith in things unseen, but firmly known as true. Your faith in who your kids are becoming, in the potential of the school, that faith in things yet unseen, you're constantly acting as an ambassador of faith. And that is work of the heart. We know where we are headed, and we inspire and renew others in that confidence. Aristotle would call this heroic temper the nature of the magnanimous. And I know in the Headmaster College you read a good dose of Aristotle, and Book 4 and Book 5 of the Ethics talks about the great-souled man, the magnanimous man. The great-souled man or woman can live in the vicissitudes of the present, but stand above and see the context of truth, goodness, and beauty that pervades even then, especially then. It's in those moments of doubt, that sense of faith of what the school is and what your students are becoming, where the most important work of headmastering takes place. So as C.S. Lewis says in the famous chapter on modern education, From the Abolition of Man, the first chapter of that book that you've all read, or if you haven't, you should read, Men Without Chest, Men Without Heart. The task of the modern educator, quote, the task of the modern educator is not to cut down jungles, but to irrigate deserts. I love that. It's not to pull the weeds, it's to water growth. The right defense against false sentiment is to inculcate just sentiments, end quote. Your courageous heart trains the hearts of your teachers and students, watering what would otherwise be the desert of doubt. That's the driest desert of all. You teach them to love what is noble and beautiful, to long for it, and for them to hold out for their very best self. This is the water of the soul, that hope, that faith in who they are becoming. So to close, my wish for each of you, headmasters to be, not yet graduated, but almost graduated, my wish for each of you is that your heart's capacity to love radiates throughout your school. I hope your own courage inspires the moral imagination of others. And I know that at stake in your great heart is the hedge against a lesser reality for our students, a default to a world in which our students are not fully free, not fully themselves. To close with the words of the ancient Athenian thinker Pericles, and he says in the funeral oration, quote, the secret of happiness is freedom, and the secret of freedom, a brave heart. So thank you. I think we're now going to graduate some headmasters. Almost.
What we are handing them is, it is a piece of paper that acknowledges, that attests to the fact that they have gone through these paces with us as part of the Headmaster College, and provides a picture of our cohort. Because one of the things you might not realize is how close they become. And one of my hopes is that in the long run, they are a long-term support for one another on those. Maybe part of that drive home involves a call to a former colleague in the Headmaster College. So hold your applause until the very end. You're going to line up on either side of me. You'll shake Dr. Scoggins' hand. And I do want to let you know that some of the members of the college aren't here today because they had to zip back to Texas to hold down the fort while their headmasters were at a headmaster meeting. So we are thankful to them that they were here yesterday with Keith Marin, and then they kind of practically ran out of the room to catch their flight. So I would like to acknowledge the support of Headmaster Altaga in having Kayla Baer be a member of the Headmaster College. Kayla, would you come up? I would like to thank Grant Goodrich and Allison Westerland for their support of William Bertain as a member of the Headmaster College. I would like to thank Jack Kirsting for his support of Ben Black as a member of the Headmaster College. And I would like to thank Andrew Chavone for supporting Melanie Brintonall, who's not here. She was actually at a pretty good clip out the door yesterday. I'd like to thank Mac Esau for his support of Christina Cully in the Headmaster College. And I'd like to thank Paul Weinhold for his support of Cindy Coughlin. Mandy Cannon has been a terrific support to Andrew Dunnick, who is in Texas right now. And thank you, Joy Hanks, for sharing Curtis Fee with us. Thank you, Philip Altaga, for sharing Marcy Finn with us and for supporting her in her work. And thank you, Grant Goodrich, for sharing Grant Goodrich with us. And I know that Allison Westerland took part in that as well, so we thank her. Thank you, John Paul Poppleton, for supporting Bill Haley's work with the Headmaster College. And thank you, Julia Gillingham, for supporting Corinne Jacobson in her work with the Headmaster College. Thank you, Mark Disher, for sharing Stephen Philibom with us. And thanks go to Mandy Cannon for her support of Laura Piper. We don't have Will Rutherford with us today, but we could thank Headmaster Crawford for sharing him with us. And finally, thank you, Brandon Crow, for sharing Zach Weiss and supporting him along his journey. Congratulations to all of you for being in the home stretch of this additional labor of selfless work on your part. Congratulations.